Like what?
Right.
Here's the thing about professional race car drivers. We can't. Nobody knows how to quit. I remember I've told you this a million times. Race car drivers do not know how to retire. We're live. This is the Money Lap podcast. It's a great show about all motorsports. I'm Parker Kligerman, joined by my good friend and NASCAR driving colleague, Landon Cassill. This is our podcast where we discuss all motorsports. And Landon, as always, we've got a pretty big show today. We will talk NASCAR, restarts, all of that. My race from Richmond, of course, as we record this on Wednesday, April 3rd. We have, what else in here on this day? We have discussing maybe Richmond in general and that racetrack. Some fines for Joey Gase. IndyCar news in that the Long Beach GP will stay an IndyCar event, and a little bit of F1 talk as well, and some World Rally Championship. So all of that and more here on the Money Lap. But we start with the PR lap, Landon, and this is where we talk about ourselves a little bit.
Let's do it.
Yay! All right, so I mentioned it. I raced at Richmond in the Xfinity Series, finished 7th. Strong day. We started off a little off. We qualified 9th, which I was pretty proud of. I had not done a qualifying lap at Richmond in 11 years, so wasn't really sure exactly what to expect. Then but I was really proud of qualifying the top 10, solid lap, made an adjustment on my second lap from the first lap and picked up a lot, which was cool. And then we got in the race, fired off pretty tight in the center. That fell back, but we got a caution where we were able to kind of reset and got back towards just missing scoring stage points in stage 1. Stage 2 got up just outside the top 5 and then had a horrendous restart where I probably should have restarted in third gear. You and I can talk about that. Because it was old tires and I got stuck in second basically trying to do like a very like low amount of throttle and not lift it off fully basically on the shift. And then we got in the third stage and my team and crew chief Patrick Donahue made a great call to take tires with like 70 to go, which a lot of us did, and the race went green to the end and we were able to finish 7th. We didn't get to make our full adjustment in that stop and we had a pretty slow stop as we continue to fight pit stop issues this year. I think we're not even in the top 15 of average time on pit road in terms of 4-tire stops, so really struggling there. But because of that, I think probably a top 5 slipped away from us because we just were way too tight the final run and lost 6th to Bubba Pollard. Had a great battle with him. Man, that was cool. He and I bumped into each other a little bit, but raced each other fair, and it was cool to race a short track legend like himself, considering it's not my real background. But
absolutely. Overall,
a strong day, and it did Landon, which I had no idea about this until I got out of the car, or even like 10 minutes after I got out of the car, that we qualified for the Dash for Cash. So we get to go race for a $100,000 prize. Yeah, at Martinsville. And I was like, because when you pull down pit road after a race, they do a line of cars who are outside the top 5. Everyone lines up on the right side, right? And then occasionally, if you're top 5 or like a special car, say, or like a playoff car, or the TV wants to speak to you, they'll summon you further down pit road to be with the top 5 cars. Well, they did that to me, and I thought they were like mistaken because like Bubba's right, Bubba Pollard's ahead of me, and they motioned him, and I'm like, well, of course, he's a big story. And then I'm like, sure, TV wants to speak to him, but then they point at me, and I'm like, this must be a mistake, but okay, I'll go down there. And I go down there, and then after like 10 minutes, someone's like, oh yeah, you made the Dash for Cash. I was like, what? So that was cool. But overall, strong weekend. We continue our top 10 runs, and I did get a cool stat from my friends in the TV world. In the last 24 races, only one car and driver have scored more top 10s than us, and that's Austin Hill at 18. We have 16. So we've been pretty consistent for a while. Yeah. So fun times.
Well, that was a great recap of your race. I'll go all the way back to your restart. I don't think that you should think about third gear restarts. I've never had success with taking a higher gear and restarts when I'm having forward, wheel spin issues. I've had more success still restarting in my desired gear, but just focusing more on the anticipation, getting rolling, throttle control, and whatnot. Third gear restarts, especially when you're in the first 2 or 3 or 4 rows. I feel like I have a better chance of mistiming the restart and lugging, and just having a bad restart. Where, I've always just, when I know that I'm on ice, just still doing a second gear, but really just focusing on getting the car rolling, short shifting, things like that. So you just can't respond very well when you're in that higher gear. If there's a brake check or if you have to hesitate. I haven't had a lot of success like that.
So I thought of it because I tried it on the warm-up lap, and I was like, this could work. And then I won't say who, someone else told me they did this, and I was like, damn, I should have done that. They got a pretty good restart. The problem, the reason we're discussing this, for those that don't know, is that Richmond is a high-wear track on the tires. And so after 20, 25 laps, wherever we had when we restarted there, and you didn't want to take your last set of tires yet, it's just the grip level is so far gone. And then if you're on the high lane like I was, it's even worse because that groove has been run in and polished off. That's why we run down the middle lane, basically, or a groove off the wall late in runs. You'll see cars running, like I do that line a lot, because there's just more grip down there. But the thing that hold on, because the thing that screwed me, and this has happened to me now twice, and I just have to, it's like one of those things where I just have to think consciously about this, is this is the second time at like a low grip racetrack where I've been focusing on that don't spin the tires, get the correct launch, that when I go to shift from second to third, because I'm so focused on like a tiny amount of throttle, for whatever reason, I don't give the brake in the throttle enough in correlation with my hand, and I get the shifter like stuck in gear, basically. I mistime it, is what I'm thinking I did. And I thought like maybe there's rubber or something in there, but then I replayed it in my head. I went back into the car on Monday and like sat there and played with it for a car with Martinsville, and I was like, I know what I did wrong. And it's just one of those things where I just need to think about it, where for whatever reason, it's now happened to me twice in, 80 races, but it's just a stupid little mistake that has big ramifications, and therefore when I finally got it to come out a second and go to third, the 00 was running in the back of us, and then by that time, the whole restart screwed. So you're never going to hook back up, and then we got knocked in the wall and that sort of thing. We still fought back to be just outside the top 10 at the end of stage 2, but I think without that, we were in that stage. We were like one of the top 5 fastest cars, even after hitting the wall. So I think it would have been an easy top 5 stage finish, which would have been very big.
Tell me,
that would have kept us
quick,
7 points.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit.
Hey, part of the pun.
Nice. How many cars that finished in front of you also were on the same strategy as you?
I think every single one.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I didn't really know that in the race. I watched the race, but I didn't watch it like super, super close. But I was watching. I just didn't have timing and scoring, and it was hard for me to keep track of like who pitted, who didn't pit. And so I just was surprised how well your strategy worked out for you, but I was surprised that you only finished 7th.
So, two things happened because
I thought you were going to win.
One, I thought it'd be great, but the 81 and the 20 were dominant. The Joe Gibbs cars were 1, 2, 3, and I think Tanner Gray Tanner, he had never even done an Xfinity race. It was like so fast, so I was like, okay. But and then the SHR car, Sam Hunt Racing, the other Toyota that must have an idea of what they run, was just as fast, and that car's been there as fast with John Hunter and now Corey Heim. So they have this track covered. But the thing that really hurt us, having a slow stop when we did pit, we restarted 2 or 3 rows further back than we probably should have. So like the 2, the 21, I can't remember, the 24, they had like a big jump on us to start the run, and the 18, the 20, the 81, the 20. So we started at such a deficit, and we also did a smaller adjustment trying to have a faster stop. Well, we didn't get we didn't have a faster stop, and we didn't have the full adjustment that we wanted to keep up with the track tightening up. And so it was like, we took, that was where our top 5 went. We probably should have been where the 2 was, basically. So
okay,
yeah, speed wise, we should have been probably 5th, is what it looked like in our metrics. So.
Well, that was quite a recap for Richmond.
I know. Wow. Look at us. We never do that.
I know. Let's get into the rest of the PR lap here because we do have some good comments, replies, and then even when we get into the NASCAR stuff, some good conversation to have on restarts and whatnot from Richmond. So, first one. Go ahead. You take the.
I'll introduce these. So first and foremost, today in the Money Lap newsletter, one of my Parker POVs went out, and this one was about the idea of what's more impressive, being the youngest NASCAR Cup Series champion or the oldest. It has gotten a tremendous amount of feedback, and I'm very flattered by everyone's feedback. So if you want to go check that out, just go to themoneylap.com and look for our newsletter, or just use the Parker's POV tab, and you can see those. That we can even discuss it on here if you want at some point. But it's an interesting sort of question about what people think is cooler or more impressive. And then you mentioned it. We've got a lot of feedback from people to our friends at the moneylap.com email. So Keith Patterson here sent us an email on April 1st saying, "Hey guys, love the unique topics and perspective you guys bring each week. Question: A few episodes ago, you guys talked about driver pay and how a lot of the new guys are paid off winnings mainly. I think the convo was around Gragson and the penalty. So what happens when the team gets caught with ingenuity, quote unquote, and their finishing position is altered? Does the driver lose pay? Does the team eat it? Does the driver even know the team is trying something new?" That is a great question. Thanks, Keith. He also did #got that upgrade. Love that. So 100%, if you're tied to the finishing position, if the team doesn't get paid for that finishing position, you don't get paid. I don't know if you've ever seen anything different.
I have experienced it firsthand.
Okay, there you go.
In not too distant years, where I had a really good finish in a race and got disqualified and did not get the money that I would have got paid for had I actually finished in that position or not gotten disqualified. So it happens. Yes.
And it sucks. So, yeah, not good.
Sucks. Yeah, that was a big swing for me to go from basically a top 5 finish to last place.
Oof. Yeah, that would hurt. I know that one well, and that would be very disappointing. So, it does bring up a question. My brother asked this, and I want your opinion on this before we go on. The incentive structure of driver pay being based on finishing position, funny enough, I think, is all wrong. You want to know why? So, first of all, think about the idea of a points day. So now with stages, right? At places like a road course where you could go and win both stages, right? Then try to, say, get to like a top 10, which would be a massive points day and maybe huge for your standings in the point standings. But in doing so, if your structure of how you get paid is percentage based on finishing position and it ramps up every 5 positions or whatever, right? Technically, you, with a successful day and doing what you all plan to do, would have a worse payday than if you just went for the win and got no points and just finished 5th on the day. You know what I mean?
Right. You need to pay drivers need to get like $300 a point.
I wonder if that could be if you think about like the Cup Series especially, where making the playoffs, I think, continually should be a big deal, right? And there used to be bonuses, especially when it was just 10. There was major bonuses for making the playoffs. I still think there is, and every position is worth a little bit more once you get in the top 25 in Cup Series. But and where you finish the points, and obviously making the playoffs basically locks you in the top 16. I think if that's the goal, then finishing position wouldn't be like the correct bonus, right? It would be points scored would be the correct bonus structure, basically.
Right. I would agree with that. I think that it just that's maybe a modern update and modern look to how drivers get paid on a performance basis that will probably ultimately get looked at by somebody, because points are what matter to these charter team owners. Scored points, the value of their charter. Although NASCAR does pay per race based on finishing position, so even though points are important, and probably the most important in terms of the value of their charter. On a race by race basis, the difference between finishing 10th and finishing 20th is a not insignificant amount of money to the race teams on a race by race basis. So maybe I could see a race team having a balance between the two, where right now a purely performance by finish pay scale, like some of the most basic ones that I've ever seen, that I've driven off of, that I know that some drivers are probably still drive off of today, is literally like 1st through 5th and 5th through 10th, and then 11th through 15th and 15th through 20th and 20th through 25th, where like there's $5,000 increments between some of those scales, depending on whether you're a Cup driver, Xfinity driver, or, what team you're with. And it's always actually been funny to me, and I've literally renegotiated different pay scales with teams over the course of my career to fit the incentive structures, because I've sat in front of team owners and said, hey, look, this pay scale you're proposing to me gives me a $5,000 bonus to finish, in 19th instead of 20th, or 20th instead of 21st, or 10th instead of 11th. Like, I could do more than $5,000 worth of damage to the car to try to get my bonus, right? That ultimately makes no difference to you guys. That one position is not worth $5,000 to you, but it is to me, right?
Yep.
And so, probably the most aligned pay scale I've ever had with a race team that I felt aligned with everybody's incentives was with a young and growing team that I drove for in my career, and I got paid a percentage of basically every dollar that came into the race team, whether it was prize money or sponsorship, everything. We were super transparent with each other. We worked really well together, because at the end of the day, it wasn't just about on-track performance, right? For that team, they were trying to build a business, right? And they were trying to build longevity. So, they were like, hey, we need you. It was almost like I was an equity partner in the team, where I was, just had a piece of the business with them, and I was just incentivized to take care of sponsors and clients as I was to drive race cars. I wasn't just making a percentage on my sponsors, right? So there wasn't like a mine and theirs. It was just everybody. And that was probably the most harmonious, arrangement I've ever had. And that's not necessarily saying that everybody's deal should work that way. Some race teams are like, nope, I don't want the driver to worry about sponsorship stuff. I just want the driver to drive. And for those, it's like, okay, cool. Put them on the track, pay them for racetrack stuff. Set your expectations in your contract for what, the driver owes you off the track. And, but still, like you're saying, I think the modern version of that might be, instead of having, X dollar increments per finishing position, is probably some hybrid between where they finish, because that is valuable, but how many points they score, because that's actually what drives value for the current charter teams for as long as the charter is in existence.
And I think the only issue, some will say, if you're getting paid on a percentage of prize money or, income from that race or whatever, right? Unfortunately, you don't get any more money for more points. You get more money for finishing position, right? It's paid. It ramps up as in what you get paid from the NASCAR payout. So, especially the Xfinity Series, right? It's the old-fashioned design, and that's.
But what's funny is the teams
tied that way.
The teams have gotten away from paying percentages of prize money. Like they don't want to share all the story on how much money they're collecting from NASCAR, right? So they've had to redo these deals over the past several years since the charter agreement, because the prize money used to be like the money that NASCAR got, which was TV money, prize money. It was all kind of lumped together, and that's what drivers got paid off of. Well, then they did the charter agreement, and they took this quote-unquote TV money and separated it from the prize money, because the prize money is paid by the tracks, right? So they took this TV money, separated it from the prize money, and said, okay, the TV money is the charter money. That's the money that the teams get for owning a charter. Well, then the teams determined, whether it was by their contracts with the drivers like they determined the drivers don't get a piece of that, right? They might get a piece of the prize money, but they don't get a piece of our charter money. And for the drivers, they were like, well, I agreed to 50% of prize money, and under that, that was under the assumption that the TV money was part of that.
Yep.
Right? So I don't know, I'm sure there's a lot of unique stories that will never get told on how drivers and their agents had to renegotiate contracts with the race teams in the modern day to accommodate this new structure.
Yeah,
and some of that was
crazy.
publicly discussed, I think.
Well, yeah, but remember how crazy that was? Because the charter agreement came together just before Daytona in 2015, if I remember correctly, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it was like overnight, suddenly, as you made it, like all these deals that were designed off of a certain structure and amount and expected income were like flipped upside down. And so it was like a crazy period then.
And so that's an interesting aspect. And so a lot of teams, that's where I think some teams too like to just pay per position so that they don't have to disclose how much prize money they're earning necessarily. They can just say, hey, you finished 20th, you get a check. You finished 15th, you get a check for this amount. You finished 10th, you get a check for this amount.
I've hated flat rates,
bonuses,
by the way.
Bonuses for wins and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I've hated them. I always felt like they were a little bit basic and weren't completely thinking through the incentive structure. But maybe that's not entirely necessary for, especially for some of these owners that like maybe they're coming out of pocket to pay for a lot of the stuff. I mean, because those are some of the team owners that I've had flat rates with, where like the team owner was paying for everything, right? And they were raising sponsorship to subsidize, but the team owner was still coming out of his pocket $5 million a year to run the race team. Those were the teams that they were like, the team owners were like, here's your flat rate, kiddo. And you're happy that I'm paying the engine bill on this car, and you're still making a good living. True. And the reality of it is like, that's true, because this is still quite a bit of money, and I'm happy with that. So, I guess I'll save my my deep discussion about incentive structures with another team owner.
Hate is a strong word, of course. I don't hate them. It always felt like I always just wanted to participate in the upside is my whole thing. And that's why I love the one you talk about, which was the, being it where you were across the board percentage, because it's just like, that just seems like everyone's aligned and the team's doing better, the driver's doing better, everyone's doing better, and everyone's happy, right? And it's just like, that makes sense. That makes total sense. In the right scenario, I think that's a really, really powerful strategy and structure. Keith, thank you, by the way, for leading us down this tremendous discussion.
I know,
Didn't
we're
really
like 30 minutes into the show, and we haven't even gotten through a second review. So let's go.
All right,
let's rip through this and start talking about Richmond.
So Alex De Silva on April 1st sent us to friends at the Mighty Lap. Hi, Parker and Landon. With NASCAR increasing road courses in all three national series, do you think a move to using the standard North American flagging rules, standing for off-track, waving for on-track, double yellow for full course caution, etc., is necessary? I am a flag marshal, and it is fairly common belief among us that we are unable to communicate enough information under the current waving blue and waving yellow only system. Would love to hear your guys' opinions on this. So to give a little more background, first of all, thank you, Alex, for the question. In most road course racing, outside of NASCAR, the flagging rules are across, I want to say, like 8 or 9 flags, right? You have a yellow flag that, if it's like a double yellow stood up, that's a full course caution. A waving yellow is a caution flag for that corner, meaning there potentially is a car stopped, there's a debris, whatever. You just have to be sort of aware of it, but you don't have to slow down to a like a full course caution speed, and you also can't pass in that area. Then they have the meatball flag, which means your car has a mechanical issue, you need to pull in. Of course, they have the black flag, and then the blue flag means a faster car is approaching, potentially on another lap ahead of you. Get out of the way, basically, right? Well, in NASCAR, when we road course race, they don't have local yellows. So there's no such thing as a local yellow. It's a blue flag that basically says, what's that?
Well, they have.
Well, but it's a blue flag, which is a warning, but it's not a local yellow in that a local yellow you can't pass, you can't go, you have to sort of like be cognizant. We don't have that. It's just a blue flag that basically if a car is spun out and they're not throwing a full course caution or they're off the track, it's like,
so NASCAR's
hey,
version of a local yellow is like, in case your spotter hasn't said anything, in case you haven't seen the smoke up from ahead of you, here's a guy 400 yards to your left waving a blue flag the size of a pizza box that maybe you'll see that and know that there's some danger.
Exactly. So anyway, to his point, and then all they have is if you see yellow, if they're waving a yellow flag, that means it's a full course yellow. So that's the NASCAR style. It's a lot less complex and a lot simpler. To answer your question, Alex, I think I haven't seen a reason that NASCAR needs local yellows, and to me, it's just more policing that's needed. And although I love you, flag marshals, and I appreciate you guys, with modern technology in terms of especially the spotter systems and the information they're able to give the team through instant messaging and that sort of thing, and get directly to the driver. I just don't see a reason to add more complexity to what's on being displayed to the driver. We're getting that information anyway. So
yeah, that's the one thing that we have that sports car racing doesn't have is spotters.
Yes, exactly.
Sports car racing has spotters, but like when we go to Road America, so what does a sports car team have for a spotter at Road America?
No spotters. They wouldn't have a spotter.
No, none.
Yeah,
right?
we
have
got 4 or 5
spotters. So that's probably ultimately, if I had to simplify it, that's what negates the need for a local yellow. Where if it's bad enough that the track is dangerous, NASCAR throws caution. So
exactly, and we tend to
NASCAR
just go
we
full
like
course.
restarts. So
yeah, let's move on to the reviews. We're over 150 reviews on our quest to 200 for Apple reviews. This one from Andy Grizz 87, really fun motorsports podcast. Love that I discovered this. Got into NASCAR again the last few years after not having followed since I was a kid, and I've been looking for things to listen to at work about it. They mostly talk NASCAR, but delve into other topics like F1 as well, which is fun. This is more like listening to a conversation between 2 friends, which I enjoy. Keep up the great work. Oh, he must think we're friends. That's cute. On YouTube.
Friends with him or friends with each other?
I think friends with each other, which he obviously has not read the room right.
Okay.
We're like one of the musical groups that they just show up for the show and they don't really speak otherwise. So no, I'm kidding.
Not even close.
John Egan Media says, regarding track limits, I has an idea, H-A-Z, love that. You guys will love this. It goes like this. This was on YouTube, by the way. Mm-hmm. You have a paved road course circuit, whatever the layout is, and the track width. At the edge of the track, at places where there's not actually a barrier at the edge, you have the edges of the pavement on either side, and defining the, quote, track limits and beyond, you have this great new innovation called, quote, grass. It tends to work based on a principle well known to professional racing drivers such as yourselves, which goes something like, quote, pavement is always faster than grass, not to mention general car control. You are welcome. I'll send an invoice. Well done, John Egan.
It's not a bad idea for stock car racing. I don't know if that would work for some of the other forms of motorsport that race on those tracks, but particularly motorcycles. But
MotoGP, etc. That'd be tough. Chad Rosa 5796 said, "How the hell did we totally not even bring up the Sage beef?" That was between myself and Sage Karamakota. Apologies. I guess I had probably talked about it so much that week that by the time we did the podcast, I literally couldn't be bothered.
I know. I hate that we didn't bring up the Sage beef. But honestly, if you are looking for beef, Parker Kligerman, then look no further than your local butcher shop. But if you are looking for quality diecast and motorsports merchandise apparel, look no further than SpoilerDiecast.com. One of the fastest growing companies in the industry. What sets them apart, Parker? Well, let me tell you. They pride themselves on excellent, exceptional service. All orders ship either same or next day. You get your hands on your favorite products in no time. And the best part is they have free shipping on orders over $20. That's right. You get a smooth and affordable shopping experience with SpoilerDiecast.com. They have over 800 unique products currently in stock and growing, obviously. And also, we've been talking about it, their new brick-and-mortar location in Fort Wayne, Indiana, SpoilerDiecast.com. boasts one of the largest inventories in the industry. They're NASCAR focused, kind of like us, but they do dabble into all other motorsports. So F1, dirt sprint cars, IndyCar. If you want it, they got it. They are passionate racing fans, just like us. And honestly, they are a great resource for racing collectibles. I feel like the racing collectible industry kind of started dying and going quiet. It wasn't anything like what it was when we grew up. And now you have partners like SpoilerDiecast.com kind of, really bringing this back to the fold, bringing this back for us. So bringing it back for the next generation. So really excited for them and for their partnership. Parker.
Love it. Thank you, Spoiler Diecast. Those guys are great. And please check out their store there in Fort Worth. It sounds super cool. Did I say Fort Worth again?
Fort Wayne.
Fort Wayne. Why do I always say Fort Worth? I always do that. It's so annoying.
Well, speaking of Fort Worth, and speaking of worth, there's a lot of stuff on Pristine Auction that is worth more money than we can afford. Which is why we need to talk about this giveaway on Pristine Auction. I don't know if you're ready to do it or if
I'm ready to do. So you led perfectly to it, because this giveaway, as we've been discussing on this podcast for the last couple weeks, is leading to the greatest day in motorsports. So to celebrate this with our friends at Pristine Auction, we have actually bought things off of Pristine Auction that we are going to give away to you, the listeners. And you can enter this giveaway at this link that we have in the show notes. So if you go to the show, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just go to the show description. It'll be in there. And then you need to, you can fill it out and enter the giveaway. Otherwise, it's PRSTN, so like Pristine, but prstn.co/moneylap. You can also go there to sign up and enter to win all these great things. So what things do we have? We have a helmet signed by Jeff Gordon, a Charles Leclerc photo from Monaco signed by Charles Leclerc. So that's celebrating Monaco. Landon, you had a Johnny Rutherford ticket, I believe, that was signed.
I had a Dale Earnhart ticket. I had a Johnny
Dale Earnhardt ticket.
Rutherford, was it like a magazine cover or I think it was a...
You're testing me here. See, this is the best part. These great things are all going to be on there, but the Dale Earnhardt ticket, I remember, was from the Coca-Cola 600, which is super cool. He won it 3 times. You can get that. So 4 great items that we are giving away with our friends at Pristine Auction. Go check it out. Go enter this giveaway. We'll also be posting about it across all our socials over the next couple weeks leading to the greatest day in motorsports on Memorial Day weekend. I'm telling you, these things are really cool. The Charles Leclerc photo, I mean, that's pretty dope. And the Dale Earnhardt ticket, to me, like, that is just anything with Dale Earnhardt's signature, I think should be such a prized possession for any motorsport person. What an OG.
Absolutely.
What a, like, just the more I learn about him and, have spent so much time with his son, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and, I get stories about, lesser known stories about him, from people in the industry, you gain more and more respect. And I feel like the folklore actually, like, some of the stories are even larger and better than the folklore around that guy. So pretty amazing individual. And you could have a piece of something that he signed here from Pristine Auction and the Money Lab. Go to prstn.co/moneylab. Go enter this giveaway and see if you can win one of these great items. So thank you, Pristine Auction. Also, if you go there and you sign up for Pristine Auction, use code MONEYLAP, and you will get $10 off your first win at pristineauction.com. They have thousands of items with guaranteed authenticity, so you can own other pieces of racing history at your price and other autographed memorabilia, helmets, photos, trading cards, and even more items. So go check out Pristine Auction. Thank you, guys, and I can't wait to see who wins these and wants to show it off on social media, because that'll be fun. All right.
Love it. Let's talk about Cup racing.
Let's talk about current events. Yeah, NASCAR Cup Series. Denny Hamlin won at Richmond this past weekend, but that doesn't really describe the controversy or what went down, because he won it on a late race restart after his pit crew, the fastest pit crew in the NASCAR Cup Series currently, beat the 19 pit crew of Martin Truex Jr., who basically had the race won when there was a late race caution. But it was what Denny did after getting the lead as he came to the restart zone, and that was going before the restart box. The Geico restart zone that is signified by lines on the track. You are supposed to, as the leader, not restart before getting in that box, and then if you get to the end of that box and you have not restarted the race, the NASCAR's flagger will restart the race, essentially. There's a lot of games that go down in there. There is a lot of room for creativity. In restarts, it's probably one of the more creative areas that we as drivers can have a massive effect on what happens in the outcome. And because of this, one of the things that we've discussed on this podcast, Landon, you brought up, that became common knowledge in the last 2 or 3 years was this idea that late in a race, if you are the leader, it is in your best interest, percentage-wise, to go early. That means just go. Go when you get to the box, or a little before the box. Put it in NASCAR's hands to make a call on you to take away a win in 2 laps on a green-white checker, right? Mm-hmm. Because the percentage chance that they're going to be able to call that or do that is a lot lower than on lap 50, and they have a while to look at it. Well, Denny took that to heart and probably gave us the most stark example of this that we've experienced.
He went a car length before the restart box.
Exactly. When we say go early, when you and I talk about that, it was, right before the line, right at the line. You can probably get away a little bit. He went a full visible car length before the line and got away with it. NASCAR has since come out and said, look, after looking at it with more time, he absolutely went early, right? But in a 2-lap sort of green-white checker situation, they did not feel they had the information to make the call ahead of them, right? I would say right now, going to Martinsville as a driver, and I'm in the lead, I'm going to be pretty sure I'm in that box when I restart the races because I think there'll be a lot of eyes on this going forward. We might have seen one of our last really early restarts out of the box, but nonetheless, they obviously did not overturn the victory or anything in that sense. What's your thoughts? What's going through your mind as you hear all this as it's played out over the last couple of days?
Well, I think it's important to think about a lot of these factors at play. It's not so black and white. And I'm not saying it needs to be black and white if I were NASCAR. Because if you're NASCAR, and this is why we've evolved to where we're at, because NASCAR doesn't want to make a call on a green-white checkered. It's not a very good fan experience to see a restart and then see a driver get black flagged, have to come down pit road after taking the white flag or something like that, or hearing about it after the checkered flag is finished. Because ultimately, it's not like Denny's going to just give up the win with 2 laps. He'll finish the race and then argue about it later, right? So NASCAR would have to throw the yellow and redo the restart, or just disqualify him or penalize him after the fact. It's a horrible viewing experience, right? Horrible fan experience. So that's what NASCAR wants to avoid. And that's why over time, now I want to get into like the kind of the history of this. Before we had a restart zone, we still had the same sort of restart policy, right? You had a control car in charge of the restart, but we didn't have really lines or too much of a zone to control it. And so the restarts were getting out of hand, and NASCAR needing to sort of rein it in, introduced a single restart line. We did have a single restart line at one point, right?
I can't remember. Now you're testing my knowledge. All I know is the box these days.
So then it evolved to like, okay, you have this restart area, right? And ultimately evolved to this restart zone, right? Is what I'm trying to get ahead to. Is like, because we went from saying it's a general area and a relaxed, I would say relaxed, but like a relaxed rule. It's not a written rule. It's just something that said, hey, the leader's in control of the restart, and the restart needs to happen somewhere in this area, and don't, go outside of that because we don't want to have to make a call. We just want you guys to have good, clean, uniform-looking restarts, right? Well, the games began to happen, so then NASCAR had to introduce a restart zone, the Geico restart zone, where it has a start and an end to the restart zone. And so they created
And
this
of course we sold
sort
it,
of,
by the way, because it's NASCAR,
yeah,
so
of
we
course
sold
we
it.
sold branding around it. So we created a restart zone, and has a start and an end to it. But the restart procedures are still basically the same. It's that the control car, the leader, has control over the restart, but it's in that zone now because NASCAR said, okay, we're getting too all over the place on these restarts. We need to define the restart zone. So they said, okay, start and an end to the restart zone. The leader can't go until he gets to the first line, and by the time he gets to the second line, if he hasn't gone by then, it's free game, right? So then we had a period of time, many years, right, where I think drivers followed that policy, right? And they played their games, and they played their strategy within that zone. But over time, because drivers evolve, the races evolve, drivers are smart, they learn, they test, they push the boundaries. Over the last 2 or 3 years, drivers have started to realize that, A, the earlier I go in a restart, the more leverage I have over my opponent, right? If I wait longer, he knows I have to go by the second line. So the longer I wait, and Denny said this, if you want to go look at his quotes, but he basically said, hey, the longer I wait, the more leverage the other guy has because he knows I have to go by the second line, right? So I have more leverage by going earlier. I also, if I go so early that I'm actually going a couple feet before the restart zone, I'm taking my opponent by surprise, and I'm putting in NASCAR's hands to have to make a call on a split second in a green-white checkered at the end of the race when ultimately they don't want to make that call. You're putting it in their hands to make a call they don't want to make. They don't want to take the win away from somebody. They don't want to, watch someone do burnouts and then interview them on pit road and then an hour later announce that they're pulling the win away. That's horrible for their show, right?
Yep.
So drivers started taking advantage of that. And I think that, obviously now that the fact that we're talking about it and it was such a big topic, I think what Denny did on Sunday is peak that, right?
Yep.
And I think NASCAR has a decision to make, and maybe they don't. Maybe things will evolve, but I don't. To take it sort of black and white, NASCAR kind of has a decision to make. Do you want a restart zone? Because if you do, and if you want it to be enforced, and you are willing to make those calls, then the solution is really easy. You put a timing line there, and it's obvious at that point if they went before or after the restart zone. You can let your computer algorithms tell you if the car fired, and they all have accelerometers in them and everything. It's easy to tell. They won't have to review it, right? It'll just be obvious. The downside to that is you're going to be dialing back a lot of restarts over the course of the year, potentially important ones, potentially ones that affect the most crucial moments of, your show. And there's a reason that NASCAR hasn't done that, right? Because I don't think they want to be put in that position. So then the other option, door number 2, is we continue going down this path, right? But I think that down that path where it's like, we don't really, we don't want to make these calls. We just want you guys to be right or be close. What's the line for, right? Do we get rid of the line, or does NASCAR just come out and say it and be like, look, it's going to be a judgment call. We have a line there, and we want you to go somewhere around the line. But if we see it in real time and we have time to make the call, we might make the call, or we might not. I don't know. We're NASCAR. It's our show. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yep.
I think that's the approach they should take. I don't think this should be black and white. Mm-hmm. I think that they take a lot of heat. I'm like, at times I'm glad I'm not in their position, but like, I don't think you want a timing line there. I don't think you want it to be black and white.
I think problem you have. Well, hold on. I think you've got a problem though. I know what you're saying, and I know for the show, what you're saying is probably the best thing. Had this sort of suggested restart area, grayness in the rule book sort of thing, and sort of up their discretion. The problem you have is betting, because betting is built on finishing position, right? And you have betting is becoming a very big thing.
Somebody going to sue NASCAR?
Well, I think
can that even happen?
I think if you have sports books and such, right? They're going to want clear-cut lines. They're going to want this to be black and white because they're as betting becomes a more prevalent thing that is growing and it's growing. It's the numbers aren't large for NASCAR betting, but the gains are large. I think like a year or two ago they were telling me it was 100% gains year over year. Like it's just
I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about the legal side of the arrangements between NASCAR and those books.
I don't know either.
Or those
I'm
betting
not a
platforms,
lawyer.
or if there even is an arrangement.
But I have to
them.
think as I walk around Charlotte today, there is 9 million DraftKings NASCAR banners around this city right now, telling you can bet on NASCAR in North Carolina now. So I just believe, and I think all sports are dealing with this. I think it's NASCAR 20 years ago would have been the gray area suggestion up to us. Don't make it look stupid and you'll be fine, right? NASCAR of 2024, I think with the eyeballs on this and the information, the data available to the fans, right, as we open up in-car cameras in every car and we open up, eventually the data most likely be live and like we all see from SMT, like you have in F1 and IndyCar, and I just think there's too much data and there's too much out there, and therefore, you're going to have to make it black and white. And to give you an example, there was a person on Twitter, Justin Reesing, who said, for whatever it's worth, the average speed delta to Denny Hamlin of the first 5 rows at the moment he launched was plus 4.6 miles per hour, roughly 10% faster. He had data for that, right? It's like he's at Joe Gibbs Racing, obviously, and does their analytics. But I think that my point of that is, like, look at that data he was able to put out there, right? This data is out there. And so it's going to have to be black and white, I think. So it's just, what you said, I loved what you said, which is what Denny did was peak of the idea of going early, and this being a gray area and a sort of judgment, a call, and it's now going to have to become a black and white call. So we'll see. We'll see what they choose to do.
Real quick, I have to pipe in, Landon, if they go your route, I have to ask, how do they make it so that it doesn't become whether that flag should have been thrown or not? How do they do that? Is it going to be you got away with it once, and then they're going to tell Denny, you better not make it obvious again, or we will do it? What does that look like? I mean, you guys race in the sport, so
I don't know. I mean, maybe if you're NASCAR, I don't know. You could. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because, ultimately, if NASCAR's saying they didn't have the ability to make the call quick enough, then maybe that's the solution they need to find, is the ability to improve their what they're seeing there and to make that call within a matter of 2 or 3 seconds, using technology or whatever, so that they can hold the green flag and just say, nope, we're doing another restart here, and call it off, not
you
throw the
call
green,
off
let
the
them
restart.
Yeah, you could call off the restart. I mean, they do that every Friday night at Benton
And
County
they do that in
Speedway,
IndyCar
or Sunday afternoons. It's Flagman didn't like the restart, right?
I haven't seen that in so long, but IndyCar does that, and then USAC. When I raced USAC midgets, it used to happen every race. Call off the start.
The leader jumps the restart, the flagman doesn't throw the green. So, that could be a potential solution there that just allows NASCAR to maybe not penalize Denny, but sort of make them come back around, line the field back up, and take another shot at it.
Hold on. That is a trivia question. When is the last time NASCAR didn't that called off a restart? I can't think of a
trivia question. Yeah, I can't.
Someone out there listening
for that reason, I don't know.
Yeah, someone out there listening,
they do it all the time.
Find me.
They'll extend the caution all the time for debris.
Yeah, but I mean, literally,
cleaned up, but
at that moment in the restart box, Denny fires too early. The flagman then decides, I'm not throwing the green. Re-rack him. That moment, I want that. Where is that? I don't know. I know at IndyCar it's happening.
the problem
they get all spread out.
and I hope I'm not incorrect, and there's probably a NASCAR flagman listening to this, but I feel like the problem with that right now is that the flagman doesn't actually control the race, right? Where in those other form of racing, in local racing, the flagman's in control of the race.
Oh, I know you're saying that. Yeah, there's race control versus flagman.
There's race control telling the flagman what to do. So that's actually kind of causing some of this delay in the communication, where it's like race control has to make the decision, and they're looking at 100 other things. So, it's interesting conversation.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, Josh, for continuing the conversation. That was great. So let's move on. We'll see where that all goes and as restarts change, and we'll find out this weekend. I guarantee you, this weekend it will be the talk of the town in NASCAR and Cup and Xfinity, and we'll start to get a feel for what change has happened from, or if any at all, from what Denny did. One thing that did go down this past weekend as well was wet tires. Sorry, they're not rain tires. We're not running in the rain. We're running on wet tracks. Were used to start the race at Richmond in the Cup Series. Thought it was awesome. Looked cool. NASCAR did say that, obviously they were very structured about calling a caution at 30 laps and then letting the cars drive the pit road and then forcing them to change the slicks sort of thing. It sounds like NASCAR is open, though, to eventually, as we do this and use them more, getting to where if you start the race on wet tires, it's then up to you as the team how far you want to go on them and eventually when you want to switch to slicks. I think that would be badass.
And I'm looking forward to that day. I'll bet you that they'll be able to, I bet you the next time they are in this situation, they'll do it that way. And that'll be fun to watch. I don't, at the time I was kind of up in arms about it, like, oh, come on, let them go. And that makes me mad. But you know what? I mean, in the last decade, we've watched NASCAR go from a racing series that, does not race in wet weather, even on a road course, to, introducing wet weather racing on road courses with similar situations, right, where they were very conservative with cautions and red flags and changing tires, to now they race on road courses in wet conditions, just totally normal, right?
Yep.
And
oval,
they leave it up to the teams.
Wet. Oval wet is it's more than a possibility. It's a reality. And like I said 2 years ago, I am so happy for the sport to do this. I wanted it so bad. I'm so glad to see it every time it happens. And to that point, that race the other night in the old NASCAR 20 years ago would not have started for another hour and a half, 2 hours. And they had that race going and on time. And that was in the ramifications of that across so many facets of the sport, the viewership side, everything are gargantuan. So huge shout out to them for doing that. It's awesome. I can't wait to see it used more and more. And the only thing I'd say is, can we race on the rain tires all the time in the Cup Series? In the dry, too. Just here's my thing: just run a treaded tire. It's if it's softer, it allows road cars run on treaded tires. Why do we have to be on a slick? I've never understood that. I thought Formula E has proven that you can race on basically a road tire, no problem. So, hey, maybe those tires have shown us the way. We want Bristol type tire wear every week. Put on those rain tires, wet tires. Sorry, and those become the tire of the NASCAR Cup Series. Let's do it. I love it. That brings me to Richmond as a whole. I'm going to give you a quote from this past weekend about every driver I talked to, and that was this exact conversation. Man, this place is awesome to drive, and I love driving and racing on it as a driver, but it is a terrible show. End quote. That is a pretty common consensus amongst drivers at Richmond Raceway, and I feel exactly the same. I love, as a driver, so fun when it's going well that you've saved your tire and you're motoring by people and hooking the line and the tire falls off a ton and you feel like you're just going 2 mile an hour but continuing to pass cars and you're running weird lines and diving in the corner, and it's super cool. From the outside, it's like watching paint dry. In this place,
it's funny.
It needs help. It needs help.
So anybody that shares this sentiment or is curious on what the potential solution for this is or what it would look like, I say tune into the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, because I think at North Wilkesboro, as much excitement as there was around that race and the return of that track, the track was so slick and so old, I didn't think the racing was that great. Right?
Yep.
And I think the racing there was probably a little overhyped. And I hate to admit it because we're drivers that love these old pavement tracks, these slick tracks that are hard on tires. It's almost like a repave is what those places need. They need more grip, right? To generate
the asphalt's
more
gone
tire
too far.
The asphalt's just gone too far. And so it will be interesting to see what kind of racing comes out of North Wilkesboro after the repave there. And if it is a better race, right? If there is more grip. And if it is better racing and produces a great product, you could definitely make an argument for saying that Richmond needs the same thing.
All you need to know about Richmond's asphalt is that in the wet, it was not faster to run up next to the wall. At times when there's rubber laid down across the bottom groove and the bottom groove is 20 degrees hotter than the top groove, it's still not faster to run up next to the wall. The pavement is gone in that place. It's gone. I want to run
I'm gonna say something that's gonna get you're gonna laugh at this because the comparison I'm drawing to it. Richmond should get the Atlanta treatment. And by the Atlanta treatment, they should cut the track from the bottom to make more banking in the corners and make the turns narrower.
I agree. 100%.
How wild would that track?
I've thought this, so like Texas, Texas turn 1, I want them to touch nothing at the bottom. All I want them to do is do the math on how much you have to bank the final half groove to a groove up next to the wall so that it runs the exact
like
same
Darlington.
time at like old Darlington, like back in the day Darlington as the bottom, and therefore the bottom and the top can run essentially the same lap time, but you've got to rip around the top or to break and go to the bottom and join again onto the backstretch. That would be epic. Richmond, I think, do something crazy. Go wild. Why not? Who cares? There's grandstands around that thing. Let's fill them up. Let's do what you talked about. Lop off the bottom groove, tighten it up, bank it up, repave it, make it ridiculous. 29 degrees of banking with the current shape. I don't know, 40 degrees of banking for all I care. Do something insane. Who cares? Go wild. Make it a show, cool town, historic racetrack, in terms of the name and us going to Richmond, Virginia. Let's do something wild.
Maybe seal it. Maybe seal it before you pave it, like they did back in the 90s.
It's not going to do it. It's going to go away. You can't seal it.
I know, but that's
Dale
the fun
Jr.
part about the sealer is it goes away and you have to chase it up the track.
That's fine. But if you think it's value enough for us to go there, especially to have 2 races there, then this place, let's take $10 million to $20 million, whatever it is, and let's go create some badass high bank short track that's like nothing else in the country. Just like Atlanta. Atlanta is like nothing else out there in the mile-and-a-half world. Once again, if you're going to do something crazy. I like that. Sealer is just going to give you eventually the same thing. Let's move on. Brad Keselowski was recently quoted as saying he wants to have more practice again going forward because as a team owner, they have not cut significant costs by cutting back on practice. I don't disagree with him. I think we've hit peak no cars on track. We got to get cars back on track through weekends. I don't know if it's practice. I don't know if it's maybe more qualifying rounds. I don't care. I don't know. Cars need to be on track more. I think it'd be more interesting. This
I think it's
15,
better for creating
storylines
for the weekend. I think it's better overall. I think the network partners will like it. I don't think it saves any teams any money. They just reallocate those budgets to elsewhere. They're spending it on engineering. So it's the
way I think about this is like give it an hour practice on a separate, couple hours before qualifying, or don't practice at all. It's got to be either or. That's the only way to do it. Connor Zilisch loves being in the press lately. He got a lot of flack on social media from a article where he was quoted as saying that he was the F1 makes NASCAR look like the county fair when you go to it. He doesn't have, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
NASCAR races, in terms of the atmosphere at the track, have been in a steady decline, I'd say, since about 2010, especially post Speed Channel going away. And when that went away, all the ancillary shows, the live shows, the trackside live, and the stuff that happened on Fridays that, with qualifying going away from those Fridays, the on-track time for cars has gone way down. the atmosphere is not quite there, and it's something that NASCAR has it's been a big discussion, I'd say, for the last 5-6 years. And it's going to continue to be until you go to these races, and it feels like you'd be there whether there was a race or not, right? And that's what they've got to work towards.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, he's not wrong.
17-year-old.
Hate for the 17-year-old to get a headline back like that, but
yeah, he got bagged on that one, but he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. Joey Gase in the Xfinity race was wrecked by Dawson Cram. He then got out of the car, pulled his rear bumper off, as everyone saw across the internet, and threw it at Dawson Cram's car. Pretty epic moment, pretty epic toss. The only thing more epic I felt like, and I thought this when I first saw it when I got out, I was like, I wish he threw it in the window so Dawson Cram would have to pit to get it out of the car. But he did receive a fine for this of $5,000 for violating a rule, safety violation. So probably correct, but you know what, Joey there trying to score one for the good guys, I guess.
How is that penalty less than a loose lug nut? Is my question.
I don't know. I don't like the problem that those smaller teams like Joey's and the JD Motorsports.
NASCAR probably wanted to do a $25,000 fine.
Exactly,
and they're like,
it's going to put him out of business.
I don't know. I mean, I'm glad they fined him. I think that was not great for headlines, great for social media. Ultimately, not great overall. A little corny, and everybody ended up making T-shirts over it.
You know what?
Which I think the T-shirt. Well, the thing is, like, Joey made this T-shirt and released it before even getting the fine. I can't imagine that NASCAR was really impressed that Joey took a part off his car, threw it, and then made a T-shirt over it to profit from it. It probably had something to do with NASCAR being like, "Yeah, I think we need to find this guy."
So he's glorifying that he just ran into oncoming traffic and hurtled a piece of his car at another vehicle, moving vehicle, probably over the line. Some sim racing / video game news out there. iRacing posted today, the team back at the shop is hard at work on an all-new NASCAR experience coming to consoles in the fall of 2025. NASCAR 25, and they posted a great sketch and 3D rendering of a garage, like a race shop, virtually. Looks super cool. Can't wait for that. iRacing guys never miss. They are I can't wait to see what they do with console race games and what they do to try and bring back real NASCAR console games to the forefront. So should we move into open wheel racing?
Yes. Give me 2 minutes here. I gotta shoot someone away here.
Okay. Josh, we're having a break for 2 minutes.
Understood. Oh, right.
You should just keep this in. He should just keep it in there and be like, So Landon stepped out for a second.
Yeah. Well, so the cool thing about, I'll talk. I like this image because it reminds me of EA NASCAR 09 and the garage that you got going on in there and them working on the machines. You know, back in the day, you hop in the game and you got the garage and they're working on things. I'm hoping this is just a sign of what the main menu is going to look like and being able to actually work on your car and improve different parts of it, not just hop in the car and race.
And a career mode. Career mode. The part to me that was always the coolest was career mode. So you could, I love the idea of like you started as a truck series driver and you made your way up and you got contract offers, that sort of thing. I think at the end of the day, a console racing game needs a really, really compelling career mode that mimics the idea of what everyone dreams, which is becoming a professional race car driver and working your way through to being a cup champion, right? Mm-hmm. I think I would, I don't know, I have any inside info, but I would think, that's part of it. And then obviously whatever cool features they come up with, like you're talking about like engineering based features, you can make your cars faster or better or that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think it would be cool. Good to see. So
yeah, Dirt to Daytona definitely has a special place in my heart. And that's the whole idea. You start on the dirt and you work your way all the way up, drive the late models and all that. And next thing you know, you're going for the Cup Series in Daytona. So
yeah, I love that. God, I guess I've kind of had a Dirt to Daytona career. It is funny to think about that sometimes when you look at your career and you're like they mimic, what, and you played those games, the career modes, and then the moments that line up with the career modes, and you're like, oh, that's kind of funny. So it's very realistic. So I can't wait. I think it's really important for NASCAR to have a compelling console game again, and we just have not had that since NASCAR 09, NASCAR 08, basically. 08 was kind of a messed up one, or 09 was messed up. The physics got messed up, and like the last great one to me was 2006. I think that was the total team control one, and then the best one of all time was either NASCAR Thunder 2004 or Chase for the Cup 2005. I thought that 2005 Chase for the Cup I probably spent the most time of my life on, and that was easily one of the best racing games ever.
I'll forever remember racing Ryan Newman in the Vipers.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
All right, Landon's back. We're moving into the open wheel world, and we start with the Long Beach GP, which will stay an IndyCar event. So Jerry Forsythe, who used to have Forsythe Racing in the Champ Car Series, was a huge benefactor of the Champ Car Series. When the IRL and Champ Car merged back in 2008, and what became what's now modern day IndyCar, he chose not to continue Forsythe into the newly formed one league, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Somehow I'll use words. Well, he's popped up because he was the one who ponied up to buy the other 50% of the Long Beach GP event, which was rumored to be efforted by NASCAR to acquire. So, and his hope was to make sure it stays an IndyCar event. So, we'll stay an IndyCar event. I still don't think the door is closed on NASCAR participating at Long Beach in some time in the near future. We'll see.
I think that we're going to keep hearing a lot of these stories. I think NASCAR is talking to everybody right now. I think Ben Kennedy is leading this effort with NASCAR, expanding their footprint, expanding the horizon, any potential possibilities. And as a result, I think you're going to hear a lot of rumors because I think he's meeting with a lot of people. And I think he's traveling the world and talking to people and finding ways to grow the sport. And I think I don't want to say it's a new thing for NASCAR because they've expanded before and they've ventured out. And I'm not trying to make it sound like every other leader in NASCAR has been some sort of hobbit. But like NASCAR has just been so much more public about their desire for growth lately that we're going to hear a lot of these stories. And they're going to be interesting. We're going to talk about them. And I think we should take them all with a grain of salt until you actually find the truth. Because I think there's just a lot of talk, and it's interesting and exciting. And so people are going to meet with NASCAR, and then they're going to go tell their buddies, and their buddies are going to tell the racer.com. I mean, that's ultimately what's happening.
And I want to give I can attest to Ben Kennedy being on the move. Bumped into him at the Charlotte airport 2 days ago in the Uber line. He was waiting for an Uber. My Uber had just arrived, gave him the fist bump. And, the guy's grinding there in the Uber line, just like you and I. So you love to see it. Down to earth, cool guy that is our age and thinks definitely outside the box. I think he's caused a lot of the great things we've seen in the changes throughout NASCAR. So, and we can I can attest in the flesh of him being on the move, grinding out there, working for all of us NASCAR fans. So appreciate it, Ben. Come on the pod. I didn't get the chance to invite him. That's a miss on my part. Now I've got to text him and try over many, many weeks and months to align our schedules. So we'll see. Maybe we'll come on the pod one of these days soon. Back to IndyCar open wheel stuff. The AJ Foyt Racing drivers tested the new hybrid Chevy power plant. And Santino Ferrucci, who actually is a good friend of Big Machine Vodka, as said that he loves how it drives and oversteers more than the current package, and that basically the car seems to be a little bit more on the driver's hands and obviously a little more tail happy and that sort of thing. So although it's been postponed and there's been some controversy around the hybrid system for IndyCar, it sounds like from early feedback that it's a positive, which is cool. Good to see. Indy cars will be going
Interesting.
really, really fast.
Wonder
Lots
what
of
it is
horsepower.
about the hybrid engine that's changing the balance like that. Is
Basically,
it, like the weight
it sounds
of the motor,
like
or is it-
some of the weight distribution is essentially what happened. Is as the Indy cars with the aero screen and such got really top heavy, and for them, I mean top heavy. In NASCAR terms, it'd be nothing, but for an Indy car, it meant a lot, and so they became very understeery. It sounds like, and this, at least early on, it sounds like the weight distribution has sort of affected and made the cars more oversteered and tail happy.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Sounds cool. So look forward to it. Also, IndyCar has nailed this because I just saw a thing from our friends on the Utopian about how hybrid sales are just through the roof right now, and the hybrid car is right now the car of now. So people want hybrids. IndyCar is
Yeah, I think I'm
launching
gonna
with them.
buy. My wife is due for a new car. Right now, she drives a Chrysler Pacifica. I think I want to get her a plug-in hybrid.
Really?
So,
The
thoughts?
question for you.
Leave
Do
in
you
the comments. Leave in the reviews.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. I'm gonna put the Hyundai Santa Fe. Man, I've been seeing a lot of those things. I just bumped into one the other day. They're so nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Question for you: do you say Hyundai or Hyundai?
Hyundai.
So that's the American way to say it. The British way is Hyundai.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, that's cool.
little known fact for you out there.
Speaking of what's going on in British areas of motorsports
Transition.
and whatever else,
Should we transition to Formula One, otherwise known as Formula One?
yeah.
But
Tweet from Jenna Fryer here.
yeah, please
You go ahead
into
and
this if
read
you
it,
would.
and I'll comment off of this.
Okay, so this just happened. I guess this just dropped as we're on the pod here this afternoon of April 3rd. And so we're reading this in real time. But this basically the FIA member club and Sport Federation of America's calling to sue people who quote slander Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who's the president of the FIA.
Which I absolutely want to be the first to say. I don't know why anybody would slander such a great and powerful man, wise and, just unbelievable human being. Great leader of the FIA.
idea of, is there anything more crass than
I don't want to
suing? Well, no, but is there anything more crass than suing for like bad articles written about you and that sort of thing? It's like, move on. It's the internet. It's forever. They can't take it back. They can't stop publishing it. It's over. It's out there. It's done. Just move on. You're giving it more. You're giving it more breath and airtime than it probably deserves, right? And this to me reeks of this whole like, oh, that's going to go forward. You're going to sue them, which will then continue to keep it in the eye of the public and that sort of
that's
thing.
called the
as opposed to-
Streisand effect.
Yes, exactly. It's the Streisand effect. You're just going to make it bigger than it is. No one cares. And no offense, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, but like nobody should even really know your name. So, because
know,
the FIA
that's so
should be
true.
like a name, like should be a nameless, faceless thing in the background. It's
faceless
officiating
yeah.
body.
Exactly.
It's just
Exactly.
ridiculous. The whole thing's
So
ridiculous.
good. I was more interested in some of this news here that I think some other people would be. So,
Let's do it.
Sebastian Vettel confirms that he's in talks with Toto Wolff for the Mercedes seat that will be vacated by Lewis Hamilton headed to Ferrari next year. That would be cool. I don't.
Well, hold on.
Seems
Hold
like
on.
I got a bad internet connection here.
No. Hold on. Yeah, you should have a bad internet connection because this makes no sense. Didn't we just go through a whole retirement party and send off and burnouts in Abu Dhabi just like 2 years ago? And now, like, what?
right.
Here's the thing about professional race car drivers. We can't. Nobody knows how to quit. I remember I've told you this a million times. Race car drivers do not know how to retire. They cannot stop. We are addicted. It is an addiction that I've now decided is professional racing. They can't stop. They can never get away from it fully. And I once wrote a piece I never put out there about this, but there's a wonderful quote from Humpy Wheeler that said, great race car drivers don't retire. They fade away. And it's like, for whatever reason, it's so true. Race car drivers can't stop. They just can't. I mean,
They just
bless
can't.
his heart
Yeah.
and
No,
all
you're
these doing. Jimmy Johnson, right? Like, He's not going to stop. He doesn't want to stop. He doesn't have to stop. Not going to stop. He also is massively investing in the sport, so he's just going to, is given that chance. But it's like,
yeah, but he's just going to fade away.
Could
right?
stop. Yeah, exactly. It's just going to fade, and it's like, but he doesn't care. But it's just so funny. Like, you see this. Mark Martin retired multiple times. Michael Schumacher came back.
So even in our other,
he came back.
This other headline that we have, which is kind of in the similar line, is Fernando Alonso obviously pushing hard to find out if he has a Red Bull seat for next year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a guy that's been in the sport forever. That he deserves to be in the sport. He's one of the best. But he's not on his way out, or at least in his mind, he's obviously not on his way out. he's in his mind, he's on his way up.
Well, here's the thing about Alonso. If you're a fan of Red Bull,
these are good drivers. Both of them I would love to see.
But here's the problem with Fernando. If you are a fan of Red Bull, and this is true that he is could potentially be going to Red Bull, what you need to know is he has an almost unbelievable, uncanny ability to choose a team at the wrong time. And so I would say this
and
this
is
just about,
he might be doing it.
This might be this is gonna be a rough couple years for Red Bull Racing if he does get there, because I can almost assure you he will have mistimed this. They'll have lost Adrian Newey. All the people will leave. There's some new engine coming in, and it will be a disaster. So I'd stay where you are, Lonzo. I'd just stay there. Stay committed to Aston Martin, see if they can get people like Adrian Newey and stick with it. So we'll see. Yeah. Well,
I think I'm more interested in seeing Alonso at Red Bull than I am Vettel at Mercedes, and I hate to say that. I was a big Sebastian Vettel fan. I loved him. I also loved seeing him retire. I thought he did it in a really cool way. And I don't really know why Vettel would go to Mercedes. I feel like Mercedes should have a deeper bench than that.
Yeah, I don't think that makes any sense to me. Why even come back? So we'll see. Let's move into the last couple topics from some global motorsports around the world, starting with the ginormous news of MotoGP, in that Liberty Media has announced that they've acquired a major stake in MotoGP. So it's 86% of MotoGP, valuing it at, what was it, 4.2 billion? Is that euros, I guess? I thought it was 3 point something, but I guess roughly around $4 billion probably. While the MotoGP management will retain approximately 14% of the equity in the business. This is interesting because obviously they are buying this with hopes of doing what they did for F1, which when they bought F1, it was, really under promoted and was underutilizing social media and had a very small amount of people working at it under Bernie Ecclestone, and they've obviously done what they've done with F1 and made it a lot larger to the point where teams were valueless just 10 years ago, and now they're all valued over $1 billion. So I think they're hoping to do the same thing with MotoGP, and I will say MotoGP to me is somehow not as popular as it should be, and I think this is big. This is big in the motorsport world because MotoGP technically is the second biggest motorsport in the world via viewership and social media and all that. They could do something really, really big here and be absolutely gargantuan in size between F1 and MotoGP. So we'll see. Any thoughts?
I do. I mean, it's MotoGP is interesting because I think it has something that other forms of motorsports don't have right now, which is just the insane and obvious insanity and element of danger, right? Mm-hmm. Like that is when you say MotoGP should be more popular than it is, that's what I think of, right?
Yep.
That's what's in my mind. It's the bikes are insane, the riders are insane, the element of danger is insane. That's what they should lean into, I think, if they want to capture American interest at scale.
I was going to point out that this is not necessarily going to happen. It still has to pass regulatory clearance. And we've already seen both Formula One and MotoGP get split up before. So it's just something to, this isn't a guaranteed deal.
Good point, Josh. Yeah, and this happened back when the Capital Group that owned Formula One also owned MotoGP and had to, in the early 2000s when they owned a piece with Bernie Ecclestone, they had to divest their ownership of MotoGP. So there could be some regulatory issues here, but if it is to go through, big news for Liberty Media. And they do intend not to change anything product-wise, that sort of stuff, but of course try to bring more eyeballs. In return, bringing more eyeballs means more monetization, more sponsors, higher TV rights deals, so on and so forth. You have a healthier series. Kudos to Justin Marks, who timed entering MotoGP just about perfectly, just like he did NASCAR ownership. The guy's got a gift. He's got a gift. You got to hand it to him. He nailed this one, if this is true. And once again, we'll have timed it perfectly, just like he did with NASCAR. So well done, Justin. Love to see it. Last thing, we mentioned it earlier, how to pronounce it. So I like to say Hyundai. You say Hyundai. Hyundai and Toyota are tied in points after the second round of the World Rally Championship, which was at Kenya. And if you have not seen some of the footage of this rally, unbelievable. Watching the WRC through Kenya and some of the imagery is just breathtaking. So go, if you have a moment while you're listening, when you get done here with our podcast, go look it up. Just go watch some of the YouTube videos, even on Instagram. I follow Hyundai on their race team on Instagram, and it's just unbelievable stuff. So I suggest go and check it out. Very cool. Yeah. Landon, we're well over an hour.
It was a long one.
Yeah, jeez. We're about to lose my voice, which means,
show today.
Unfortunately, he was just ready to get on here, but we're not going to be able to bring Kyle Busch on today. So we'll have to just hope to make it happen next week. But that was a fun show. Thanks, bud. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to The Money Lap. As always, check out themoneylap.com for the best 5 minutes in motorsports, or sometimes just the coolest stuff in motorsports, delivered directly to your inbox 3 times a week. Check us out on YouTube. We're growing fast over there. And, of course, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We're all over the internet. We're spreading the word of how cool motorsports is. Check us out.